Am I the only person that still really loves World War II fiction? I hope not. Hello, my name is Carly, and I really love World War II historical fiction. If you also love World War II historical fiction, then you are in the right place. I would highly encourage you to subscribe and stay tuned because this is going to be the first in a multi-video series. I'm not quite sure how many videos yet, but I have been thinking about this for quite some time. I really want to talk about how much I love World War II fiction. And I'm going to start with the World War II books that I love the most. And then we're going to dive into other World War II fiction by theme. I'm thinking of a couple of different themes, but anyway, enough about that. Let's get into these books. I'm debating on doing these in some type of order. I'm looking to the books off to the side and I'm trying to think. There is one true standout that I think you've probably heard me talk about if you've been around here for a while, but anyway, I love these books so much. I love them all. So this is in no particular order. First up is a book that I absolutely adored, but I'm not sure it's going to be for everybody. So hear me out. The Three Lives of Alex St. Pierre by Natasha Lester is so decadent and lush, and I absolutely adored every single one of these pages. And I highly recommend this book to anyone who likes resistance fiction, but also loves fashion. This is the story of Alex, who during the war was a resistance fighter in Switzerland. After the war, she finds herself in Paris and really down on her luck. One of the things that I absolutely loved about this book is how well the author portrays that female experience after the war, when all throughout the war, women have been essential. Maybe they're working in factories, they're doing coding and supporting war efforts in different ways. And after the war, at least for this character, she becomes very despondent. What is she going to do? And she kind of stumbles into this role of marketing and PR for the House of Dior, and really kind of becomes essential to the growth of that fashion house and feels relevant again for the first time since the war. Well, then her past kind of starts sneaking up on her, and it's then becomes this kind of cat and mouse game. Through flashbacks, you get a lot of context sprinkled throughout the book of why she is in this situation that she's in now. Plus, there's this lovely romance. I absolutely adored the romance in this book, and I ate it up with a spoon. So again, if you love World War II books and fashion, definitely check out Alex St. Pierre. So this next book you've probably heard me talk about if you've watched any of my previous videos. Angels of the Resistance by Noelle Salazar is so good. Y'all, this book. Her book, The Flight Girls, is really great, but this one for me was just the bee's knees. This book, to me, epitomizes bingeable, fast-paced, emotional World War II fiction. Like, I don't think you can top this book with respect to those qualifiers. This is the story of two Dutch sisters who, at a very early age, joined the resistance after experiencing some really traumatic events in their neighborhood, with their friends and friend groups as the Nazis start to occupy Holland. And they become full-fledged resistance fighters. I mean, you go through everything with them. Their training to execution of orders, sabotage, all these different scenarios that were just really, really intense and stressful. But at its heart, it's a sister story. And I love, love, love sister stories. But to me, what was so compelling about this book is that it's based on a true story. of two sisters who did exactly what I just described. I love that historical fiction can introduce us to very real people and real events in history through the lives of these fictional characters. Is this for everybody? I think it should be. Every person that I've ever asked or encouraged to read this book has loved it. It is, again, highly bingeable. You will not want to put this book down. It was a page turner for me, and it was so fraught with all the emotions, fear, anger, love, elation, desperation. It's that good. It's that good. This is the first Noelle Salazar book that I ever read, and because of this book, I will read literally anything she's ever written. This was my favorite book of 2022. Hands down, best reading experience of that year. Loved it. Highly recommend. We'll be rereading this eventually. This is the most recently read book on this list. I was very surprised by how much I loved this book. This was a recent TBR jar pull, and if you want to know more about the TBR jar, check this out. I was so surprised at how much I love this book. And now I'm reading the author's new book and enjoying that too. This is one of two books on this list that are about books. Most readers like to read books about books and reading. And if you like World War II fiction, if you like home front fiction, and you like books about books and reading, you need to read The Last Bookshop in London by Madeline Martin. This is all about a young woman who, with her friend, moves from the countryside into London right as the war was kind of taking off. Her mother has just died. She doesn't really have a way to support herself, and a friend of her mom's is taking her and her friend in. Her only real skills when we meet her is running a shop. For years, she ran her uncle's shop, but she can't get herself a job as a shop girl because she doesn't have a letter of recommendation. So her mother's friend with whom she's staying helps her to get a job at a local bookshop. Well, this bookshop is drab and dark and dusty and disorganized when she first arrives, and it's run by this kind of crotchety old man. Over the course of the book, she develops a relationship, a connection with this crotchety old man, and helps him to kind of revive his bookstore to its glory days that he shared with his wife when they ran the bookshop when she was still alive. Over the course of the book, our female main character discovers the joy of reading, and through her newfound love of books, she connects with the community around her and supports the community around her as they're going through the Blitz. What I love the most about Homefront stories is the focus on community. And if you love that, if you like kind of a community of characters and hearing about how people supported each other through some of the darkest times, this is a good one. Definitely a good one. There's a whole lot I could say about this book. I'm going to go out on a limb and say I'm probably the only person that feels like The Huntress is Kate Quinn's best book, but to me it is. I found this book so compelling for one reason and one reason only. Nina is the baddest bee that ever lived. I love fierce female main characters. I love revenge stories. I like unlikable characters, and Nina is all of those things in one. This is a multi-point of view post-war book. It does have some flashbacks to wartime, but it's mostly a post-war story. It's about a young girl in Boston whose widow's dad has just met this woman. They don't really know a whole lot about her, but dad is smitten with her and tells her, hey, this is going to be my new wife. The young lady feels like this woman is hiding something. She's just kind of shady, and she's definitely foreign. And they don't, because she doesn't know a whole lot about her, she starts noticing just little things that she does or says that seem suspicious. Meanwhile, a war correspondent is on the hunt for Nazis who have escaped the war tribunal, and he connects with a former female Soviet fighter pilot, and they are hunting for this very specific person, this female Nazi killer. All of these characters eventually connect in the hunt for the Huntress. I remember being so compelled by this book, I did not want to put it down. I read in order. This is the order that I read her World War II books in. I read the Alice Network first, liked it. I read The Rose Code, enjoyed it. I read this, loved it. Literally could not put it down. I have since read The Diamond Eye, which was also enjoyable. Have some thoughts on that. And maybe I'll come back and talk about Kate Quinn books specifically. Nina isn't based on a real person, but there was a very real squadron of female fighter pilots in Russia known as the Night Witches. And reading about the Night Witches was like, if you've read and enjoyed Kate Quinn's other books and you haven't read this book, why not? I loved it. I'm probably one of very few that feel like this is her best. But again, I think it's really great. Some people may not agree. I'm really curious about what your thoughts are if you've read this book. I want to know. Now for the most unsung book on this list. I read this book pre-publication and screamed from the rooftops that it was absolutely incredible and encouraged everyone that I knew to please pick this book up. It has since kind of just, I don't know, fallen by the wayside. It does not get talked about. And I truly don't know why, because this book was so dang good, you guys. I'm talking about Buzzy Jackson's To Die Beautiful. This is based on the true story of Hannie Schaft, who was a law student in Holland turned resistance fighter after the Nazi occupation. And from word go, Hannie is just incredibly fierce. This book was, again, very bingeable. It's fast paced. There's a lot of twists and turns, and it just had me by the throat and would not let go. I sobbed hysterically at the end of this book, and I think this is one of two books on this list that made me cry. You can probably guess the other one. We'll talk about that. I just loved this book. I'll never forget where I was when I finished this book. I was reading it on my Kindle out on my patio. It's a sunny day. It's beautiful here in Southern California. And I read the end of this book and was just like blubbering. It just is that good. I cannot say enough about this book. The resistance and the sabotage and the intrigue and all the covert operations that happen in this book are beautiful. Love that. Love it. But the character and the character story and the ending, oh my God. So worth it. If you haven't read this book, please put it on your priority list. It's so good. Feel-good fiction and World War II do not always go together. This particular author seems to have been able to do that. And I'm not quite sure how, because it didn't all feel good, but it left me with that feel-good feeling that you don't often get from historical fiction. Once again, we have a book about books and reading. So, maybe there's a theme there. The Last Bookshop in London by Kate Thompson. Oh, y'all, I love this book. It's a chunk. And it probably could have used a little editing. Did it need to be this long? Maybe not. But I didn't care. I obsessively read this book when I got an early reader copy. And I was so overjoyed when Read Forever Pub sent me a copy of this book, as well as this book, just because I asked. I was like blown away. I had never done that and really haven't done that often. I think I can count on one hand the time that I've outreached to a publisher about a specific book. And when I did that and they sent me these books, I was just like, oh, I loved this book and these characters and this story so much. I keep saying that, but this is a video all about books that I loved the most. So I'm going to use the word loved a lot. So you may already know that the East End of London was one of the areas that was hit the hardest during the Blitz. Because of that, many people lost their home and had nowhere else to go. And it was predominantly a poor area of London at the time. So really, people had nowhere to go. As a result, the Bethnal Green underground station was turned into essentially like a little village. And this book is all about a little library that was started in that underground station as a result of damages to the library in that community. So people are living in the underground station. Clara, the librarian, the main character of this book, and her best friend work really hard to create a little library that lifts the spirits of those people who were forced to live in the underground, who had lost everything. And it just brilliantly captures the fatigue and fear and frustration of Londoners at that time, and is a beautiful friendship story, is a beautiful found family story. It's a beautiful story about community, and I just ate it up with a spoon. It left me with such a warm, fuzzy feeling, and you don't often get that from World War II books. So if that interests you, if you like, again, home front fiction, stories about friendship, stories about community, that leave you with the warm, fuzzy feeling and happen to also be about books and reading, this one, please. We've got 2 more books on this list. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that you might want to throw some shade at me when I say this, but one is definitely better than the other. I think Codename Helene is better than The Nightingale. Yes, The Nightingale did make me sob hysterically, and the Codename Helene did not. But Codename Helene made me want to, run a marathon or something. I just was fascinated by the character of Nancy Wake. Let's talk about these 2 books. I think everybody knows this book. It is one of the most beloved books of all time, or of our modern time, maybe. And many readers enjoy this book regardless of whether or not they enjoy historical fiction. It's a compelling story. It is an emotional story. It's a slow story. I said it, yes. But it's so worth your while. If you have not read this book, highly recommend. I'll never forget where I was when I finished this book. I was sitting on the beach with my boyfriend. We're hanging out with, tons of people all around us. And I'm sitting up, hunched over this book, crying hysterically, snot, the whole 9. And he's like, "Are you okay?" I do also remember kind of early into this book, maybe about a third of the way in, I was like, this is kind of boring. And I've heard other people say the same thing. And I always tell them, keep at it. It's worth it. It's worth it. But it definitely is slower. I love the twist at the end. I'm not telling you a whole lot about the plot because I assume you know about this. It's 2 sisters who both resist the Nazis in their own way. One is a resistance fighter. One stays home with her young child while her husband is off fighting and has to billet a Nazi soldier. So she resists in her own ways, in small ways, in her own community. I absolutely adored this sister story. I think that one of the best things about it is that it's not a warm, fuzzy sister story. These are 2 sisters who are on different sides of the planet personality-wise. And they really love each other, but are frustrated with each other. And it reminded me so much of my own sister story. I love her, but God, man. So if that describes your experience with siblings, definitely check this out. Like all Kristen Hanna, it's fraught with very traumatic things. But I think of all of her books, this is the least melodramatic. It is dramatic, but it's the least melodramatic. Yeah, I'll stick with that. I cannot wait for the film. I think the Fanning sisters are going to do a beautiful job with this film. And I will never, ever, ever stop recommending this book, though I'm not as in love with Hannah as I once was. This is the first thing that I read by Kristen Hannah, and I immediately went on to read The Four Winds and The Great Alone and enjoyed both of them. I actually think The Four Winds is her best book in terms of writing. I was very disillusioned with The Women, and I'll come back and probably talk about those books at some point, but I've not read any of her other books. Those are the only 4 Kristen Hannah books, so if you think I should read others, let me know. But I just have kind of realized that she has this formula and sticks with that, and it's all melodramatic. And like I said, I think this is the least melodramatic, so I would say of all of her books, I think this is the most likely to resonate with all readers. What I enjoyed the most about this book was the Nazi occupation experience. I think that Hannah did a beautiful job portraying what it felt like to be surrounded in your community all of a sudden by Nazi soldiers, and what it felt like to adapt your way of life to this occupation and these occupied forces. I really was fascinated by that, and I think she did a great job with that. Overall, highly recommend, love this book. But it in no way holds a candle to this book. This will always be my favorite World War II book ever. Period. End of story. Full stop. From the moment you open this book, you meet this incredibly compelling character that I will never stop thinking about. It's 100% unforgettable. This is the story of a very real resistance fighter, Nancy Wake. She was an Australian journalist in France who had fallen in love with a Frenchman, married him, and was living in France at the time of the war. Ultimately, she joins the French resistance and is separated from her husband. One thing you need to know about this story, it is a heartbreaking love story. I'll leave it at that. The emotional toil that Nancy goes through being separated from her husband is heart-wrenching. The sabotage, intrigue, covert ops in this book, again, love it. Like, there is none better. To Die Beautiful comes close. Nancy is fierce. She is, I mean, when we first meet her, she's putting on her red lipstick and jumping out of a plane. Like, I'm never going to do that. She is just such a force to be reckoned with that I could not put this book down. And I still think about this book. I will continue to recommend this book for as long as I live. It's one of 2 books on this list that I added to my books that kind of changed my brain chemistry. To be so compelled by a character and to know that she was based on a real woman in history is just, it spoke to my history-loving soul. This book is ferocious. Yeah, that's the best word that I can use to describe this book. And I 1000% encourage you to read this book if you have not yet. So there you have it. These are my favorite World War II books that I've read ever. I will be back with more World War II book recommendations based on themes, as well as a list of World War II books that I've not yet read that I've been told I'm going to love. So stay tuned for more World War II historical fiction recommendations if you like that sort of thing.